the literature or the research that's already been done on these behavior interventions, we know that 10 to 15% of all students within the classroom are at risk for having these level 2 behaviors. And these level 2 behaviors we know are going to lead to other issues like failure at school, delinquency, or other risky behaviors. We've also learned that we need to be able to decrease these problems in elementary school, or as low of level as we can get to, in order to not only correct the behavior, but have higher academic achievement, and then increase their quality of life beyond school, which is one of our district's goals, making sure that all students leave the school system college and career ready. I also learned in my research that the interventions need to be done as early as possible. So we really need to focus on this in the elementary school level. They also need to be proactive rather than reactive. So we want to make sure that we are prepared for what these behaviors, what they might look like, and then what we're going to do when we see these type of behaviors. There are a variety of approaches for all behavior intervention plans. We currently have our systematic approach, so we need to look at more of an individualized approach, and our research has showed that those individualized approaches will reduce those disruptive behaviors within the classroom, and then it can also reduce our discipline referrals across the school. The intervention system that I looked at with the research also talks about the progressing levels of intensity, which would be our level 1, 2, and 3 behaviors. We want to make sure that we address all of these challenging behaviors. The research also shows that it needs to be consistent, which we know in the school system we talk about being consistent between academic interventions, so this consistency would apply to behavior interventions. It also needs to be something that's completely simple. It needs to be effective time and use of resources for teachers, because they will be using this system in the classroom, and in the past they have shown that it needs to be something that doesn't take up so much time that teachers can do this with multiple students at a time. So the system that I researched was a modified check-in, check-out plan. It still had feedback regarding individual students' problem behaviors. They would check in at certain different times, and it would be like a report card that would talk about whether they met, did not meet, or how much time they are meeting the expectations. The research also shows that that rewards should be provided when the goals are met, which is like our positive reinforcement. So they started a designated percentage before the plan started as what they would consider proficiency, and then at that percentage level, if they were achieve that at the check-in time, they would get their positive reward for that. The research showed that this check-in, check-out behavior modification plan is ideal for level 2 behaviors, because it is very easy, quick, it's not time-consuming, it's also less involved than an entire behavior plan, and it can be done for all kinds of different issues, customizable for individual students. And like all interventions, the research shows that we eventually want to get them off of the intervention. So we need to wean them away gradually so that the behaviors stay, but that they don't require that consistent positive reinforcement. And it's shown effective at the middle school level along with high school level, but this is something that will need to be adapted as we move into elementary school. So my research question for this project was, what is the effect of a behavior chart on the incidence of level 2 behaviors in a 5th grade classroom? We chose action research for this project because we wanted to make sure that it's something that we could continually change and adapt as needed. However, looking at our data from last year, per every 100 students, we've had about 58 office referrals, which is more than half of every group of students that would be receiving office referrals for level 2 behaviors. And our top 5 problem behaviors here are listed, and they kind of all boil down to 2 of our classified level 2 behaviors, which are either chronic level 1 infractions, where they're constantly doing these little things, or first offense bullying with the fighting and verbal language. We also saw that over 34% of this is happening in the classroom, so we do want to make sure that our intervention is used in the classroom so that it keeps the students in the classroom where they're not having to leave for those 262 in-school suspensions. So for this intervention of the behavior chart, I chose 3 students from my homeroom. They're ages 10 to 11, boys and girls. One of them is on an IEP. All 3 of them were identified by our SPS team, which is our behavior management team, to mean that they did have consistent level 2 behaviors that were going to require some kind of intervention. The original SPS referral was made for each student. We went through and looked at the level 2 behavior definitions. We'll look at the meeting minutes consistently to make sure that we are changing the plan accordingly. We're going to look at the actual chart we make for each student and their goals and rewards that would be on that chart. We'll also want to look at the data every 4 to 6 weeks to see how we might need to adapt the chart for them. So this is just a copy of that SPS referral form. Anytime a student needs to be referred for intervention services, academic or behavior, this referral form gets filled out. This is where our definitions of level 2 behaviors come from. So the behaviors that we're specifically targeting are going to be off of these lists of behaviors. So of the level 2 behaviors, the ones we're really going to look at for this study are the chronic level 1s, staying in task, staying in our area, and then our profanity language, that would be our respect that we're going to look at today. SPS minutes are taken at each meeting, and then at the end of the meeting we have a summary of our discussion, and that's where we will decide whether they need to change goals, add goals, and in the beginning this is where we actually create the goals, along with setting our percentage of when they get their check-in and check-out times. Here's a copy of one of the behavior charts with their data on it. These charts were completely individualized, so there's student A, X, and J. Student A's goals were to stay on task and stay in his area. Student X was to stay on task and be respectful, and then student J was to be respectful and stay in her area. We didn't want to get over 2 to 3 goals per student. We want to make sure this is something that they can be successful at and that they can see that immediate success throughout their check-in and check-out times. The data is going to be kept by the homeroom teacher. It is kept by goal. So for student X, it would be his stay on task, percentage of meeting the behavior.